Hello Year 5. So from this week we're going to start doing some reading lessons at home. Now I would like to start a reading book with you based on our Mayan topic. However, I'm still waiting for that to arrive. So what we're going to do this week is we're going to look at some reading comprehension focused on mountaineers. So obviously we're doing mountains as part of our geography topic this term, so it fits in quite nicely. So what you will need to have in front of you before we start is you will need to have a copy of the text in front of you. Okay, because you're going to need that for the exercises that we're going to do as part of today's lesson. So what I would like you to do first is we're going to have a look at what we're going to do today. So we're going to look at new words and their meanings. We're going to be looking at some of our vocabulary focus today. We're then going to be looking at explaining and justifying reasons by using evidence from the text. And we will do some simple retrieval of facts and figures and answering some true and false questions. Now I split this lesson into two. So we will do half of this lesson today and then half of this lesson tomorrow. So we will be focusing on the same text for the next 2 days. So what I would like to do first is I would like you to read the text in front of you that's called Female Mountaineers. Now there should be 3 different parts to it. Now whilst you're reading this, just like we do in class, if you have a pencil or a highlighter or a colouring pencil to hand, when you're reading through it, I'd like you to see if you can underline and identify any new or unknown words that you may not know about, and underline any interesting facts that you come across when you are reading it. Once you have finished and you feel like you might need an additional challenge, what I would like you to do is I would like you to describe each female mountaineer in 3 words. So 3 words that you would use to describe their character, maybe their determination, maybe what they stand for, any morals to the stories that they're telling you, and see if you can explain any reasons behind your word choices. So have a go at reading the document, have a go at the challenge question if you'd like to, and then come back to the video. Okay, so our second task that we're going to look at is fluency and expression, so how we read things. So I'd like you to read the extract below, and I want you to think very carefully about how you could read this out loud to make this extract engaging. So here is the extract in front of you. I'm not going to read it out loud to you just yet, but I'd like you to have a go at reading it on your own. And I would like to think, are there any words that you, when you're reading this, that you would express using different emotions, maybe hand gestures, maybe facial expressions? Would there be any words that you might emphasise? Would you put any pauses in there? What about the pace of the way that you read the sentences in front of you? So have a go at practising reading it out loud and having a go at stressing different words, emphasising different words. Try reading it at a faster pace, at a slower pace, and see what effect that has on somebody that could be listening to you reading that extract. Okay, so there are different ways that you could read this and different words that we could emphasise to try and make this extract as engaging as possible. So you could read it in one very simple way, which could be very robotic and monotone. I didn't intend to be the first woman on Everest. I just simply climbed a mountain, but the environment around me changed so much just because I was the first woman. Yeah, it doesn't sound very interesting, does it, Year 5? So we could think about pointing out the pronoun I. So obviously one of the important things that comes with this text is they were the first female mountain pioneers. They were the first females or the first woman to climb up these mountains, okay? So I didn't intend to be the first woman on Everest. I just simply climbed a mountain. But the environment around me changed so much just because I was the first woman. So even stressing the simple word of I stresses there's an importance behind the idea that this story is important because she was the first woman, so I being her is important. There are other words that we could stress. So I didn't intend to be the first woman on Everest. So this suggests although she was the first woman, it wasn't her intention. She wasn't looking for the glory. She wasn't looking for a story. She wasn't looking to break a record. But it wasn't her intention to be the first woman, but she had this idea and she wanted to set out and achieve it. So we could stress that word intend because it's not an important element to the story. However, it has had consequences because as a result, she has become the first woman to climb Mount Everest. So I didn't intend to be the first woman on Everest. I just simply climbed a mountain. Now we could say simply climbed a mountain because it can be to some extent a simple thing for people to do. However, I wouldn't advise going and climbing Mount Everest and just simply thinking you can climb it because it takes a lot of months of training and a lot of knowledge and understanding of how to climb that specific mountain. But in the general themes of it, you've got an idea and you want to go with it, then you go with it. So yeah, she simply climbed a mountain. So this is suggesting that she doesn't see that there's a big, there's a big fuss to be made about this at all. But then we start the sentence with the word but. So I didn't intend to be the first woman on Everest, I just simply climbed a mountain. But the environment around me changed so much. So we could stress this so much because it was a big impact, this idea that she was the first woman to climb the mountain, just because I was the first woman. So yet again, we can stress the reasons behind why the environment around her changed so much, and obviously it's going back to the point that she was the first woman to climb Mount Everest. So you can see the difference between the first reading I did and the very last reading that I've done of how we can stress and use pace and expression to make an extract engaging. Okay, so have a go at practicing yourself based on the examples that you did at the beginning and see if you can try and make that sound as engaging, as exciting as possible. So here is your third task. We're going to have a look at some vocabulary. So you may need a dictionary to hand if you happen to have a dictionary at home. If not, you can always use the internet and Google to help you with this task. So do not worry if you do not have a dictionary at home. So here is a table of words, and I'd like you to have a go at filling out this table on your piece of paper in front of you. So don't worry about drawing any lines or anything like that, but I would just like you to consider these three words. So the first word we have is refused, we have avoided, and pioneer. Now I've used the word pioneer already in a sentence, but I haven't told you what it means. And what I would like you to do is I'd like to think, have you heard this word before? Now, this could very simply be a yes or no, or a tick or cross, or you might want to create yourself a scale. So 1 could be a no, a 2 could be you're not quite sure, and a 3 could be a definite yes, you've heard of this word before. So it's entirely up to you how you choose to do that. So I'd like you to think about whether you've heard those words before, and I would like you to have a guess, so estimate, have an educated guess at what you think the word might mean. Now, to help you, these words will be in the text that you have already read. And we know when we're looking at words to read around the sentences. Okay, so you might want to read the sentence before, the sentence the word comes up in, and the sentence afterwards, because that might give you an idea of what the word might mean. If you really then have no idea what the word might mean, have a look in your dictionary or have a look on Google and find the definition for each 3 of those words. And I'd like you to write down the definitions of what those words mean. Now, as a challenge question, once you've done that definition, I'd like to have a go and see if you can use all 3 of those words in a sentence. But don't copy the sentence that you find on the sheet, I will be checking. So have a go at writing 3 different sentences using those words based on the definitions that you have found. Okay, your task 4. So we're going to look at vocabulary synonyms. Now you might be starting to think, well, hang on a second, I don't know what a synonym is. But I know from being in year 5 and teaching you before, I think you do know what a synonym is. So a synonym is a word that means the same, okay? So here are one of our sentences and our words. So she astounded everybody by returning the next year. So what does the word astounded mean in this sentence? So I'm going to give you a list of 4 other words, and they might be synonyms, so words that would have the same meaning to the word astounded. And what I'd like you to do is I would like you to tick the word or write down the word that you think matches the definition of astounded. Now what I would do is I would reread the sentences with each of those words in its place to see which one sounds like it might make more sense. So let's start with the first one. She amazed everybody by returning the next year. She unimpressed everybody by returning the next year. She cheered everybody by returning the next year. Or she unaffected everybody by returning the next year. So have a go at rereading those sentences yourself, and can you tell me which word means astounded in this sentence? Okay, amazed, well done. So to be astounded by something means to be amazed, could be taken by surprise, could be shocked. So you're amazed by something. So she amazed everybody by returning the following year. So not only did she climb Mount Everest in the first year, but she then went and climbed it again the following year. So your last task for this lesson, before I get you to go back and have a go at doing some other vocabulary questions yourself, is I would like you to use the information from the text, and I would like you to tell me which of these statements are true and which of these statements are false. So have the text in front of you, see if you can find those statements in the text. So the key thing to look for is the first few words of the sentence. Scan your text and see if you can find them, and I would like you to tell me if those statements are true or false. Okay, let's start with the first one. So the first one, Oi's son became the first person to climb all 14 of the highest mountains in the world. This one was false. Unfortunately, they were not the first person. Kaltenbrunner managed to complete a climbing challenge without using additional oxygen. Now that statement was indeed true. Now that's a pretty impressive feat because as you climb up mountains, the percentage of oxygen increases and actually makes it difficult to breathe. Free climbing involves tackling sheer rock faces without harnesses or safety ropes. Now that one is indeed true. Now, had you not known that before, most people would think, well, actually, that's false. You surely cannot do that without harnesses or safety ropes. But unfortunately, as it's free climbing, that is used without additional safety measures. Pretty dangerous, but some people's cup of tea. After scaling Mount Everest, Junko Tabei gave up climbing for good. Now, you might not be able to see this one because my face might be covering it on the webcam as usual. So here, this answer is actually, let's see if I can hide it. Oh, look at that. The answer is false. Okay, so we have the first and the last one as a false statement and the middle two as a true statement. So your task for this lesson as you will need to keep the text out in front of you, and there are some additional vocabulary questions that I have put at the bottom of the text. I would like to have a go at writing down the answers to those questions, and tomorrow we will pick this lesson up and move on with task 6 by looking at retrieval questions, and I will give you a final challenge to do to finish off this unit of reading. Good luck, year 5.